if Miami's Cam Ward has been playing mid, I'd like to see what good quarterbacking looks like.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We had some shocking basketball news on Thursday. I did not have Tony Bennett retiring on my bingo card. We'll get into that. There's a lot. I guess there were, like, Kenton, you made me laugh so hard on social media. There were one too many Tonys involved in Virginia athletics. I don't think this is the one people wanted to step away, though.
So, no, he's just too good of a guy. He loves UVA too much to say Tony Elliott, Tony Musket, or Tony Calandria had to hit the road. He's out. I'll go for the greater good of everybody else. I'll get on out of here.
One Tony had to go. We'll also talk some Virginia football because they're big underdogs at Clemson for Tony Elliott's homecoming. The Tony that was left standing there in Virginia coaching circles. Duke against Florida State. Can Duke get their first victory ever in football against FSU? We'll start out, though, with this Cam Ward story. Now, Kenton, when I use that word in air quotes mid describing Cam Ward, probably some of the people listening to this are like, oh, okay, which Florida State podcast referred to Cam Ward as mid? What's going on? It was actually Cam Ward who referred to his play 6 games into his Miami career. He was asked to describe his level of play so far. Now, knowing Cam Ward, having the privilege of covering him since January when he arrived at Miami, I knew he was going to give like a humble response. Like, there's no way Ward would come on and say, yeah, I think I should win the Heisman. I think I'm in light. Like, I knew that wasn't going to happen, but he referred to his play so far as mid. That's the exact word he used. And he talked about, and he's not wrong, he has left, despite how well he's played, he's left a lot of plays on the field so far this year, Kenton.
And I think that, when people see this, they need to understand that he's not saying that he's mid compared to everybody else. He's saying he's mid to his own standard, which is why I love this guy. I love this guy because this is how you need to approach the game. You truly get in that mode, that zone, that bit of greatness when you run into, you know what? I am going to be my own worst critic. Nobody's going to be harder on me than me. Nobody's going to deflect praise more than me. Because when you are in that mode, that means that you're always looking for that next edge, that next little bit, that next what's getting dull so you can resharpen it. And when every tool in your kit is sharp because you constantly say, I got to get it better. No, I got to get this part better now. Okay, that part, I got to get this part better. That's where you find yourself in a territory where you're not just one of the best players in the country. You're the guy. That's how guys become the guy. When you take it upon yourself to say, I need to be at a level that is unprecedented. I need to be at a level that scares people. That's when you truly ascend to that next level, that Heisman level, that number 1 overall pick level.
Yeah, and so far, and again, if this is mid, I'd like to see what he can do statistics-wise the second half of the season, because so far, Cam Ward has Miami. They have the number 1 total offense in college football at a little under 600 yards per game. They're exactly 400 passing yards per game. They've also got the number 1 third down conversion rate in FBS. And Ward, so far this season, completing 69.2% of his passes, 2,219 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He would like to have some of those interceptions back, I'm sure. He's also scored 3 rushing touchdowns this year. And I do think Miami has some tougher games. It's not that tough of a schedule on paper. Miami does have a couple of tougher games to go, including Louisville this weekend. But some people might say, oh, Ward, he's putting up those big numbers, but they played an FCS team this year. They played Ball State this year, but he was out of those games shortly after halftime. So it's not like he was compiling massive stats in those games. What he's done so far this season is nothing short of impressive. And I'm wondering, Kenton, because I think the game this Saturday for Miami tomorrow at noon between Miami and Louisville could end up being a shootout. Miami's defense, how they play, could decide the game because they were shaky in Miami's last couple of games. But it seems like he could continue his success this week, KG, because Louisville, they're 70th in passing yards allowed in FBS this season. They have 30 missed tackles from their defensive secondary, which is fourth worst in FBS so far. So this seems like another game, unless it's a get-right game for Louisville's defense, where Ward could continue putting out some fireworks this season.
Not only could he continue to put out some fireworks, he could also have a Heisman moment in the old Snellenberger Bowl. He could have a moment in the battle for the boot where many people are like, that's it. We saw it now. He pieced it together. He played a complete game against a quality team. That is going to be something that I'll be monitoring closely because, again, Cam Ward, I think, one of the best players in the nation. I think he's absolutely a first rounder. I absolutely think he's phenomenal. But if we're talking about hitting that next level where you leave no doubt, right? Where people are like, wait, Ashton who? Wait, that Travis kid, he's pretty good, but he's, playing both ways. Cam Ward, nobody impacts the game like him. If you are to hit that level, at some point in time, he has to have a game from start to finish where you just go, nobody in the country could do that except him. Because when you talk about the Heisman race, right, you look at Ashton Jeanty, rather. That game against Oregon, who else in the country do you think can put up 192-3 against Oregon?
Yeah.
You look at Travis Hunter. He's had games with 100 receiving yards and an interception and a pass breakup. Who else could do that in the country but him? Cam Ward has not had a moment, a game rather. He has had moments. He has not had a game rather, full body of work, start to finish, that you say, bring your baddest to the floor. Bring your best out. Bring the guy that you think he can do it with anybody. And he can't imitate this. He hasn't had that entire body of work in the game yet. And Louisville's defense, while they do miss tackles, while they do give up big chunk plays, this just off name and reputation alone, which again, y'all know me, I don't give a damn about no name or reputation. But the Heisman Award, a lot like CFP voting, is a popularity contest. Does depend on human voters who don't have the capacity or the time to watch every game. Say, well, who did he do it against? A big game against Louisville where your stat sheet looks clean, you throw for, complete 75% of your balls, no turnovers. Maybe you rush for a touchdown or two, 40, 50 yards on the ground or more. All of a sudden, people are like, oh, wait a minute now. That's in the game that nobody else in the country could bring out.
Yeah, and on to your point and to that game at noon on Saturday in Louisville, I think one of the other big deciding factors for either team is who has fewer self-inflicted wounds. Right. Because even though Miami is 6-0, they have flirted with disaster a couple of times, too many penalties, too many turnovers, specifically in the Virginia Tech game, too many penalties in the Cal game. And Louisville, certainly the Notre Dame loss was based on mistakes, too many missed opportunities, too many mistakes in that game. SMU probably was the better team that day, but still, you could point to mistakes as being something that has cost Louisville and nearly cost Miami. So keeping those turnovers down is going to be massive for that game at noon. But we got more games to talk about because it's a big weekend, including who's going to get their first ACC dub. Is it going to be the Calgorithm or is it going to be NC State? Is Duke going to beat Florida State for the first time ever? And can Tony Elliott, who knows Dabo Swinney, knows Clemson so well, played at Clemson, coached at Clemson, can he go down there and give the Tigers a fight? You guys want to keep it locked right here. So we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through HIMS, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety info. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you're also checking out Locked On College Football. Kenton Gibbs hosts a show on that network. Spencer McLaughlin does a great job taking you through all the big games and all the big storylines. Locked On College Football is available free on YouTube and available free wherever you get your podcasts. Kenton, Friday night tonight, you've got Florida State on the road at Duke. And I don't know. I think Florida State might grind this one out, Kenton, for as troublesome as they've been through their first 6 games with a shocking 1-5 start. I think they've got a little momentum with Brock Glenn. You know, I know that, like we always talk about, there was a reason why he was behind DJ Uiagalelei, but he looked a lot better against Clemson than DJ had earlier this year. I think that they are motivated, and I also think it's worth noting that, you know, they're 1-5 compared to Duke's 5-1. Duke has had a much easier schedule to this point than Florida State has had. So it would not surprise me if the Seminoles go into Durham and continue that unbeaten streak against Duke football.
Yeah, I've been to Durham many times in terms of Wallace Wade Stadium, and it's not the liveliest place. I'll say that much. I saw them take on Clemson first game of the year. I believe it was last year. Where they pulled off a massive upset. I went back after that, actually, and they were still undefeated at the time. I believe when Notre Dame came to town. I believe I was in town for that one as well. Matter of fact, I was definitely in town for the Notre Dame game. It still wasn't the environment that you would have thought it would have been for an undefeated team taking on an undefeated Notre Dame at that time. Like, that was one of the bigger games in the country at that moment, or maybe one of those teams that had one loss, but still, that was one of the big games in the country that wasn't there. So I look at this and I say, you know, what do I think of this game? Florida State and Brocktoberfest are important. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting, but no 3-2-1 until you do right by them people. Until you fulfill your end of this bet, your Noles are going to struggle. And guess what? Malik Murphy and company are going to run the ball down this team's throat. They're going to make it very uncomfortable, very ugly. It's going to be a rock fight. But guess what? There's going to be a team standing there with just a couple more rocks in their hand, like, get up, punk. And that team that's going to be Debo on this day will be the Duke Blue Devils. I know that they've had an easier path to their record, but I still look at that Florida State team and I say to myself, where's the confidence? Where's the pride? Where's the, hey, we are a good team? I'm not going to give you credit for keeping it within, 16 at Clemson? Yeah. I'm not going to give you credit for that. I'm sorry. I can't do that. But I do believe that they are a better team on paper than Duke. The only problem is, who the hell haven't they been better than on paper except maybe Clemson? Yeah. And even Clemson, on paper, they were supposed to be the better team. And lo and behold, you get what you get. So fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me 6 times, I'm no longer a fool. I'm a willing participant. I'm not a willing participant in Florida State Kool-Aid drinking. Give me the Blue Devils.
Yeah, despite the fact that I think Florida State can pull it off, I'm not confident enough to bet on them. So let me ask you, because Duke are 3.5-point favorites. Do you think they cover that, or can Florida State maybe keep it within a field goal?
If we're talking about who covers, I got Florida State. But if I'm taking
Okay.
money
Yeah,
line,
yeah.
give me the Blue Devils to win it off a last-second field goal at home.
Yeah, so on the FanDuel odds, if you want Duke money line, it's minus 152. So you'd have to bet $152 to win 100 back. And against the spread, it's minus 3.5. So that's what we're looking at for that one. But elsewhere in the Atlantic Coast Conference, a game that I'm super excited for, despite the fact that the odds say it's going to be a blowout. Kenton, 10th ranked Clemson are 20.5-point favorites now on FanDuel, which is really important because that's, that's just under the 3 touchdown mark. I've been bitten by those half points before when I'm betting against the spread. So Clemson minus 20.5 against Virginia, but Virginia has been playing really well this season. They nearly pulled it off against Louisville last week. I know Clemson is better than Louisville, so I think Clemson's probably going to win this game at home. I don't see them winning it by 3 touchdowns, though. And, it's going to be emotional for Tony Elliott, of course, who played at Clemson and coached at Clemson. It'll be his first time going back to his alma mater as head coach of the Virginia Cavaliers. I'm just saying, I think Virginia keeps it within 3 touchdowns. I think Jonas Sanker is maybe going to have a turnover on the defensive side, Virginia's star safety. I think they keep it within 2 scores, not just 3.
This team Tony Elliott needs to get this team to give every single ounce of their being to this game, not just to win this game or keep it close. But did you know that this team has 6 games left? Do you know how many of them are against ranked opponents, Dono?
No, I don't.
4 of their next 6 games. You're looking at number 10, Clemson. Then you've got the Dirty Foot Club, also known as UNC, coming to town. Then you're on the road at Pitt, at Notre Dame. Then you've got SMU coming to town. And, of course, you end the season with Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
This team has to not let what happened against Louisville snowball. Because if you do, you're cooked. You're done. There is a fork in this team. It is all over. Because at this point in time during the season, I think they'll be favored in one more game. However, I think they can win at least 2 of these. I think they can win at least 2 and get to bowl eligibility. I don't want to see this team not be bowl eligible. I really don't want that for Tony Elliott and Tony Calandra. I love that pair. I really, really like Tony Calandra a lot. Elliott, not so much. But I love me some Tony Calandra. And with that being said, if they can't keep it within 20, that's going to be a tough game. And also, will they keep it within 20? I think so. I think they're a better team than people give them credit for. Their eye test is much better than people would imagine. When you watch them play football, they're a much tougher and more physical team defensively than you could have ever imagined watching them last year.
Yeah, just about every time I've watched UVA play this year, I'm saying that's a pretty good football team. I know that they probably would like to have the Maryland game back. They pulled off a big comeback against Wake Forest. Didn't play consistently well in that game, but Virginia's been pretty good this year. So I think they can at least, again, I don't think either of us expect them to win outright, but they can at least give Clemson a contest. All right, so traveling out to Berkeley, somebody's O has got to go because Cal 0-3 so far in ACC play. Your NC State Wolfpack 0 so far on their ACC schedule. I will say about Cal, every conference game they've played in has been super close. They've all been within a touchdown. 2 of them have been decided by less than a field goal. I know they're probably still having, nightmares about the way that Miami game ended a couple of weeks ago. They were really close this past weekend as well against Pitt, where Cal. And what are the vibes now, Kenton and NC State? Because obviously breaking in a young quarterback in CJ Bailey, who has made some really good throws, but he's also made some true freshman mistakes this year. How do you see this one playing out in Cal?
The interesting thing about this game, NC State's pass catchers have been one of the highlights of the team. Justin Jolie, Concepcion, Noah Rogers, they've been the highlight of this team. They've done well by doing good on the field. They've shown out in many regards, and I don't think that they've had a single game yet where they have been just shut down, put on Alcatraz, just like, hey, More power to you, but there's no hope here. This may be the best defensive backfield they play all year. This very well may be. And with that in mind, it's then going to be incumbent upon your running game to get something done and kind of find some pliability there. I don't think NC State can. And I think if you're trusting Bailey to drop back 40 to 45 times against this team, that's a recipe for disaster. I think the algorithm says, hey, we've given enough to the ACC. We distributed wins equally to everybody, from each based on ability to each based on need. Unfortunately, we need a win just as bad as you, NC State. But I will say, it wouldn't shock me if NC State pulls this upset off, because Cal has played Miami tougher than anybody. Nobody can argue that there is a better matchup or a team that played Miami closer and should have won more. But with that being said, Florida State's record is what now, Dono?
1-5.
Who's the one, Dono?
Yeah, that would be the algorithm.
You never know which Cal you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And Lawrence Ross told us we're gonna have games that we drop that is just like how. And so, you look at this game and you ask yourself, has Cal gotten the mulligans off their system, out of their system, and we're going to see that team that played against Miami on the regular? Or is Cal who they were against Florida State? A lot of questions will be answered on Saturday night.
That's well said. Surprising turn of events on Thursday afternoon. We get this bombshell seemingly out of nowhere, but maybe it wasn't out of nowhere, because I was reading an interesting quote from ACC Hoops Media Days. Virginia head coach Tony Bennett has retired. The timing is weird, but you certainly cannot change the fact that Tony Bennett, at national championship in 2019, and he has been excellent at UVA. We'll talk about this shocking news when we come back. You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. We're certainly not done with FanDuel. And by the way, the algorithm, they're favored by 10 points against NC State. Miami Hurricanes are favored on Saturday, now by 5 points against Louisville. You can check out all the numbers and all the action at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of games, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. It's awesome. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. So, Kenton, I was watching ACC PM on Thursday afternoon. Then all of a sudden, I see this breaking news alert. Tony Bennett has retired. I thought maybe they were talking about the singer, because he's a really old guy. Oh, the good life. He wasn't. No, Tony Bennett, the basketball coach. Virginia Cavaliers head coach Tony Bennett, 3-time National Coach of the Year, 4-time ACC Coach of the Year, national champion, NCAA tournament winner in 2019. And the oddest part about it, Kenton, is this happens 20 days before Virginia's season starts, and what about 10 days after ACC Media Days? And this was weird, because I went to football media days, not basketball. So I'm reading this story on ESPN. It says, during an interview with ESPN at ACC Media Day last week, this was less than 10 days ago, he was asked why there was a perception that he could be the next Jay Wright and abruptly retire while still in his prime. So I guess there were some suspicions out there. And he said, I got to call Jay Wright and see what he says, right? I always have said, when you're doing this, you're in this profession, whether you agree how it's going or not, you have to be true to yourself and really look at it and say, who am I? Can I operate how I want? Can it be successful enough? And you get to choose if you want to be part of it or not. And when you feel it's time, like Jay did, like Coach K, maybe Saban, it's their choice. You can sit here and complain and gripe, or you have a decision to make. Either you try to do it in your way, or you get to make that decision. So I think Jay Wright probably foresaw where this is going. It'll be better whenever there's regulations. Is that 3 to 5 years away? Who knows? But if it's not, those are decisions that every man has to make when it's his time. So I guess the foreshadowing was there, Kenton, but still 20 days before the season starts, a week after media day. This is odd.
A third string shooting guard came up to bro and said, I need 50K or I'm out. And he said, no,
I'm out.
You stay. I'm out. I'm out. Well, this ain't the Virginia way, okay? You don't even know the pack line defense yet, and you think that we gonna pay you $50,000. No, but in all seriousness, this is a moment that, and by the way, if you're hearing any announcements about Tony Bennett, the singer, at this point in time, he's been gone for a year, so
he's dead.
We may need to check your pulse. Yeah.
I feel terrible because I'm actually a big fan of his music. Fly me to the moon. I think that was him.
But in all fairness, when you look at Tony Bennett, the basketball coach now, I'm not surprised by the announcement because we all had a sense and feeling around Tony Bennett that he was one of those guys. You know, he was one of those guys that's like, this was a possibility. My only issue is the timing. Like, I hate to make such a personal decision about us because it's not about us. Those players, though, do you not think they feel a little bit left in the lurch? Like, I committed here based on you being the guy. If I'm a true freshman and I'm like, hey, I believe that I'm here to win a championship with Tony Bennett, and then less than 6 months after that, he's like, actually, I'm gonna go fish somewhere. You know, I'm gonna go purify myself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. You know, I'm gonna go sail the world with my old lady. You know, I'm gonna go retire to Boca Raton or something like that. What? You know, it's really, again, he's decorated. He's won championships. He, by all accounts, amazing man. But this timing, anybody who says that there isn't something fishy or odd about this timing is a liar. Point blank, period. Because you've done all the preparation. You've done all the nasty, grueling stuff. You're about to get to the fun part. We get to compete against other people. We get to see other people and defend at a high level against them and suck the air out of the game against them. That's what we're about to get to do. And you retire in this exact moment? There's something in the water there that just does. And let me also say this. I don't know his reasoning. It could be nothing nefarious at all. Could be health issues. Could be a family member's health issue. I don't know. So I'm not going to speculate as to what it could be. I will say, however, if it is not something of serious health issue, this is, it's just one of those things that feels a little like there's a lot of people that are left in less than ideal spots behind this.
Yeah, no doubt. So this is strange. I can tell you that probably next week we'll catch up with our guy Isaac Shade from Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Tar Heels. We'll talk about the hoop season coming up because that is looming. And Tony Bennett retirement. I mean, a bunch of within the last 4 years, we've had national champion winning ACC coaches retire. It's like it's a trend. I don't know how many we have left.
He saw a world where NC State won the ACC championship and said, I'm done. Enough. I've had enough. Get me out of here. Get me out of here immediately.
Well, I always have a great time talking ball, whether it's football or basketball, with Kenton Gibbs. Make sure you check him out at Locked On Wolfpack. Make sure you check me out at Locked On Canes. And everyone have a great weekend of games, and we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.